everyone, welcome to Berry Fun Adventures, episode 9. My name is Tanya and I'm coming to you from southeast Minnesota, where my family and I run Firefly Berries, which is a fruit farm specializing in pick your own strawberries and Concord grapes, and where I dye yarn naturally with plants that I grow. So it's been several months since I put out an episode, and part of that is because we were busy with the holidays. But part of it also was simply because I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep doing podcasts. So at the risk of creating a really long tangent, let me just explain my thinking of it. So COVID happened, right? March last year, 2020. We all suddenly, for the most part, were locked down, couldn't leave our houses. So we go from this busy world of going to the grocery store, running our family places, doing all those things we need to do, to staying at home. And life suddenly became, for lack of a better word, it was just kind of day to day, right? So we kind of had to reassess. I felt like I had to reassess where I wanted to spend my time. And for a while, I thought I knew where I wanted to spend my time. And then sometime in the middle of summer, early fall, it sort of struck me that nothing was worthy of my time. So, you go from like doing too much, and then you kind of slow down, and then you have to kind of reassess. I'm not being very eloquent in my explanation here, but basically to say, for a long time, nothing seemed good enough to spend my time on. And so in doing that, I was sort of thinking, well, maybe putting together this podcast was not worth the time it took. That I would be better off to spend my time actually knitting or doing something else. So I kind of put it on the back burner over the holidays. But then I kind of found that I missed it. I missed talking about my projects. I missed kind of going through each thing that I was working on. And not so much because there were huge numbers of people watching the podcast, but more because whenever I went through my projects and I put together a podcast, it was sort of my way of documenting what I was working on. And it was also a way to inspire me to do more, to do things that I loved, because knitting and crafting, crocheting, all those things bring me joy, as I am guessing most of you feel the same if you're watching this. You're interested in enough in the podcast, or maybe in our farm or my yarn, that it's bringing you joy and comfort. And that was enough, I decided. It didn't matter if there were 24 or 200 people watching. It was about how I felt and about how those of you who have been interacting with me felt. So anyway, all that to say is I decided that I wanted to continue doing the podcast in 2021. I have been busy over the last couple months. So I did find, so today is, what day is today? Today's Tuesday, February 9th. It's very cold in Minnesota. Today is sort of a heat wave compared to yesterday. Yesterday was a high of 1 degree Fahrenheit, and today I think it's about 8 degrees. But it's been cold, and so I've been wearing a lot of woolly things. So let's start right there with what I'm wearing. I have kind of just over my shoulders this shawl. It is by Stephen West, and it is called Smocket. Let me see which side is the front. I think you can wear it either way, but I'm going to hold it up and see if you can see it. It's very long. So it's very long. And it has, you start on one end here and you knit. It's kind of got garter ridges with a ribbing edge. And then this section, I'm going to hold it close, this kind of border, it's actually an attached border. So after you do all of the garter ridges, and you use three skeins of yarn, this one I made with Berry Fun Yarns soft singles. I love the soft singles base. It's 100% superwash single ply merino, and it's just super squishy. It's fabulous for shawls. So this first color is very light. It is, it's called Mama's Boys. And then it fades into, I think you can see it better on this side, this variegated colorway, which I believe is Lemony Snicket. Pretty sure. I'll have to double check, but I'll put the project page below. And then the last color is Minnesota Northwoods. So the Minnesota Northwoods is a marigold dye. No, not marigold. It is yellow onion skins, and then I over dye it in an indigo bath. So you will see these yellow pops coming out, and that is because when you over dye it in the indigo, some of the, depending on the skein and the intensity of the yellow versus the intensity of the blue, some of that will still come through in different spots. So that's what that is. And then the Lemony Snicket is a combination of marigolds, cochineal, logwood, and actually I think this one is, I dipped it in a very light indigo bath. So it's actually a very light version of Under the Sea, which is a different colorway that I will show you later because I'm using it in a different project that I'm working on. So anyway, and then the Mama's Boys is just an indigo dye. So anyway, it's really pretty. The edging is a picot bind off, which took forever. When I made this shawl, and actually I love this shawl because it's kind of nice to sit on your shoulders, but it also goes kind of, you can wrap it around. But it reminds me of all my sweet knitting friends because when I made it, it was supposed to be a sample at Zombie Knitpocalypse in 2019 for my booth, and I hadn't finished it, and I was on this picot bind off the Friday before the market, and the market was supposed to be on Saturday morning, and I was binding off furiously the night before, and I think we stayed up till it was late. It was like after midnight as I was trying to finish it, and I had to be back for like 6:30 that morning. And as I was binding off the picot bind off, my friend Wendy was weaving in my ends and the rest of my shawl so that I could have it for the next day. So anyway, love that. Smock It by Stephen West, a great use of 3 skeins of fingering weight yarn, and you can use any combination because you use up most of all of them. So that's always great because then you don't have any left behind. The shirt I'm wearing is called the Lounging Top. Stand up. It's kind of a short. It's shorter in the front and a little bit longer in the back. And it is by Joji Locatelli. And it actually, I think she has a sport weight version and she has a fingering weight version. I am a very loose knitter, so I tend to be able to add, I can add I can use a fingering weight. So this is Malabrigo, I forget what the version is, but it's Malabrigo, it's Tosh Sock, I think, in the fingering. But then I held a lace weight mohair silk, very fun yarns, in Grungeberry with it. And so I can usually get the same gauge as a fingering at the same needle size. So I like to do that because then I don't have to futz with gauge, and if I like it. So it is short sleeve, but I like it in the winter because I can just wear a long sleeve shirt under it, and kind of gives really nice warmth here. Sometimes I wear a cardigan over the top and it still keeps me really warm. And the last thing I'm wearing, I do not even know the pattern. I don't know the yarn dyer. It was my very first skein of real wool or yarn that was made out of 100% wool that I purchased. I went on a yarn crawl. I want to say it was, I'm sorry if you can hear the piano in the background. That is my oldest son. He is a music guy, and he is practicing downstairs below me. So the pattern, I know what I was going to say. I was going on a yarn crawl, and I bought this in Zumbrota, which is a small little town near us, and the yarn shop has since closed. And I want to say it was like eight or almost 9 years ago that I purchased it, and it was hand spun by a lady there, and it's fingering weight, and I don't remember, it was before I was even on Ravelry. I'm not sure of the pattern. If I find it, I will put it below, but I don't have a project page for it because I made it so long ago. But I love them because they're just like these long straight arms with finger hole, and my hole kind of gave out. You can see I've patched it because I've worn them so much, but they're so warm, and because I have really long arms, can you see that? I have really long arms. The shirt never covers my wrist, so I love to wear these on top because then they kind of, especially when you're wearing a tank top like this, this part of your arm can get cold, but then you have warmth on your forearm and your wrist. Anyway, that's a lot of chatter about what I'm wearing, but those are the 3 things I am wearing today. So let's go on to what I finished. I have finished a ton of things since November. I did find just this week episode 8 that I filmed like right after Thanksgiving, and I somehow lost or forgot that I hadn't uploaded it. So you will find that on the channel. That was just posted maybe last weekend, the last weekend in January. But since then, since I recorded that video, I've done a lot of things. So one of them is a super easy project. This one looks really wonky, but we're gonna go with it. I'll show you what it's supposed to look like. This is the crochet bowl cozies. It is a pattern by Amy B. Stitched on Ravelry, and it's super easy. This is a crocheted pattern, so you can see the bottom. So it's for like when you warm up your leftovers in the microwave and your bowl can get kind of hot, so you put this around your bowl and you stick it in the microwave, and so then when you take it in and out, it doesn't hurt your hands. And it is made out of 100% cotton. I use, excuse me, I gotta grab over here. I got my crochet hook still sticking in it. The Dishy from Knit Picks, Dishy multi worsted weight. And so this one is made entirely in the, I think it's called, yes, Berry Basket. It's this colorway, Berry Basket, which is kind of a fun color. So I made this one first. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, by the way. So, and then this one I made also with the Berry Basket, but I used, you can kind of see on the inside it's all blue. I had some leftover, I think it's just called blue. I don't have the color, but the name with me at the moment, but it's on my project page. It's just a solid blue. So what you do for this one, since it's a free pattern, I can kind of give you some details. You make this, the base here, it's like double padded. It's like a hexagon-y kind of shape, I would say. Not hexagon, it's 6 sides. I'm not a math person, I'm an English teacher. So anyway, whatever that is, 6-sided. 6-sided bottom, and then you make 2 of them, and then you crochet them together, and then you kind of come up the sides, and then you increase on the ends, I believe. You increase for a while, and then you start to decrease on the ends, and that's how the bowl goes up. Well, you can see this one is a nice, perfect, like square. My corner stayed right. Well, this one got wonky. I don't know what happened. It still works. It actually, my husband likes it for some of our taller bowls because it seems to be a little taller. So I don't know if I wasn't paying attention when I was crocheting, and I messed up where the corner was, and so it kind of I don't know what the word is. It kind of sticks out funny. So anyway, those are 2 crochet bowl cozies that I finished. I'm going to be making more of these because the kids like them a lot, and they're great for gifts. I think I'm going to send some with my son when he goes to college next year for his when he warms stuff up in his dorm room. The next thing I finished was my Christmas socks I was working on. They look kind of wonky, forgive me. I wore them the other day and they need to be washed again, but this is a simple 64 stitch sock, and it is in a homespun house yarn. I think it's called Home for the Holidays is the colorway. And then I just had a red mini that I had lying around that I made the heel flap and heel from. So those are for me. I actually finished them in time. I finished them to wear on Christmas Day. I think I finished them Christmas Eve. Not Christmas. I was going to wear them Christmas Eve, but I finished them in time to wear Christmas Eve, so that was great. I love those. And then I finished, so partway through Advent, I did not order an Advent calendar with minis, even though I like to knit with minis. Partway through Advent, I was on the Zombie Knitting Network, which is a great network that Amy and Megan from the Stockinette Zombies host right now and sponsor. And I was on Discord, that's kind of where we chat, and somebody had posted this pattern as something that they were planning to do with their minis. So it is called the Speltas Wrap, and it is by Samantha Troya, and it uses 24 10-gram minis. Well, I didn't have a specific Advent calendar that I was using, but I really loved the pattern enough that I created my own with some of my leftovers that I had or some of the yarn that I dyed with Very Fun Yarns. So most of the colors in this wrap are Very Fun Yarns. There's a couple that are Lavender Loon Yarn Co., which is my friend Sam from northern Minnesota. And I think maybe there's one that I got from a friend that I don't know where it's from, and one that is some leftover One Twisted Tree. But let me take this off. It is this sort of a long, so it's start down here, and it's sort of an angled point at the bottom. And you make the first rectangle and then the second, and then as you knit the others, you kind of do each side. So they kind of go up back and forth. And this is is it a free pattern? No, this is not a free pattern. This is a paid for pattern. So I'm not going to give you all the details. But it was very easy to follow, great pattern, well written. And it was really fun because the colors just kind of, it wasn't that much to knit every day. And the colors, it was fun to see how they went together. So I'm going to kind of show you all of them. So I started out lighter, and then it got a little bit darker with some colors at the end. So this bright one here and this one here is Lavender Loon. And I think the gray one at the end is One Twisted Tree, but most of the rest are all from Very Fun Yarns. If you are out on, so I used 24. You could certainly, so let me put it on so you can kind of see how it looks when it's on. Because the pattern does suggest putting tassels kind of right here on the end. I decided I didn't want tassels. I kind of liked it like this. But it's very light, and I kind of like that. I'll keep this on for the rest. But it just sort of falls nicely. If you are at all interested in 10-gram minis from Very Fun Yarns, I do have on our website, I offer what's called a grab bag of micro minis, and I believe there are 10 10-gram minis in each bag. So you could get two sets of the 10-gram micro bags, and you could make this wrap easily. You could easily do it with 4 less because it would just be a little bit shorter, or you could add in colors of your own and use your own scraps, of course, too. So anyway, that's called the Speltas Wrap by Samantha Troya. And then I finished a lot of things, actually. There were a couple things I finished that I gifted that I don't have here, so I won't tell you about those. But I did finish, before the end of the year, like I was hoping, my Rugged Coat by Hohi Locatelli. So you can kind of see it here. I think I'll put a picture on the screen of me wearing it, because then you can see the whole thing, because it's quite long and quite big. It's hard for me to see if I were to stand up. I don't think I could back up far enough for you to see it. The only thing I didn't super love about this, how it came out, overall I love it, and I would, I don't know that I'd make it again because it was a lot of knitting. I think total yardage, it was over 1,500 yards, and I'm not a huge person. I think I made size 2, so it was a lot of knitting, but it's a broken rib for most of it, so it's not like you can just knit around and around. Plus, it's a cardigan, so I suppose you could make it and you could steek it if you added in the extra stitches. That would probably be pretty easy, but because it's a broken rib, you still would be purling. But what I was going to say is the thing that I wasn't super jazzed about was how I bind it off. So I felt like my sleeves and even the bottom a little bit, I felt like they flare a little too much. And I futzed with it. I followed the directions, but then you're supposed to bind off in pattern, so it doesn't have any extra ribbing on the bottom. You just keep doing the ribbing and the cable. You keep doing the cable and the ribbing to the bottom, and it just didn't quite set. I think I ended up going down a needle size and doing the stretchy bind off, so it was still stretchy, but it wasn't super stretchy in the sense that it would like really flare out. Anyway, I don't know if you have an idea of how I could have made that better. I would love to know about that, but it in the end I love it. It's super warm. It did make me realize though that I prefer to have more pullovers versus cardigans that are open cardigans. So maybe I could pick up a button band and I could add something to it. I'm not sure that I will, just because I ran out of yarn. In fact, I ran out of yarn so much that I made my pockets gray. You can kind of see the pocket is gray in there, which is fine. A contrasting pocket is cool. But I wanted to save a little bit of the yarn so that I could have it in case I had needed to do a fix, like a mending of something. But anyway, that is the Rugged Coat by Hoki Locatelli. That turned out good. Oh, I'm almost done. The next thing I finished is another pair of socks. They're actually a gift coming up. And these are, again, simple 64 stitch. I love to do the knit 3 purl 1 rib for about 1.5 inches on the top. And then I just do straight knitting. I do a heel flap and gusset, and then I do a simple toe on the end. So this is a Knit Picks colorway called Rustic Cabin. So I've got that one and this one. They were kind of wrapped up and ready to go, so I have them. Here we go. Yeah, so that's it. Our family is a part of the Baha'i faith community, and the end of February we have what's called a Yamiha that we are, it's sort of like our gift giving time of the year. So those are going to be sent to a friend who is celebrating that with us as well. So the last thing that nobody helped me knit, who am I kidding, that I made is this hat, which I talked about, I think in Dream Knitting in the missing episode that I just posted. This is the Kobu Hat by Caitlin Hunter. I'll kind of bring it closer. You can kind of see there's some purl and some twisted stitches in the bottom, and then there are some little bobbles up on top. And this is knit in Berry Fun Yarns All-Star DK weight, which is 100% superwash merino, superfine merino, and it is held double with lace mohair silk. Yeah. And they are both, I used the Double Berry Milkshake colorway. I am hoping that I will be dyeing up some of this again soon. I'll talk more about it in the pots, but I wasn't feeling very motivated to dye. And again, now I've been really itching to dye some yarn again. So hopefully I'll have some of these in the shop soon. But that is the Kobo Cat, and I can put it on actually. I made mine a little bit slouchy. I don't know if you can see me. I got it kind of slouched down so you can see it's a little slouchy, but not a ton slouchy. So anyway, and the pom-pom on top is super fun. It is from a new maker that I found, a Minnesota maker. I believe her name is, on Etsy, is North Star Stitches. I will put a link below, but I got a whole bunch of really fun pom-poms from her recently. So yeah, so the Kobo Cat by Caitlin Hunter. So that's it for my finished objects. That was quite a few actually, 6 I think. So let's go on to works in progress. So let's start with, I thought I had pulled, sorry for the weird light there with me turning around. I thought I had pulled all of my, whoops, I'm dropping stuff, pulled all of my projects out, but I didn't. So this is the Autumn Blush Shawl by Joji Locatelli. I had just started it last time when I podcast, and I am knitting it out of Berry Fun Yarns All Star DK in the Blackberry colorway, which is dyed with logwood. And I really like this. I haven't done this for a while because I cast on a new sweater, which I will show you in a little bit, and I've kind of been obsessed with that, but I was really enjoying this a lot. So here's kind of what it looks like. Kind of doesn't look like, there's like a big bump here. Apologies for the beep. That's my phone. I didn't realize it was going to ding at me. So that's the back. The front has this really fun, so on the bottom, it's all kind of bunched together. I think this is one of those patterns that's going to look way better once it is blocked. So the bottom is a picot edge, and then there's kind of this cool pearl twisted stitch combo. And then there's some seed stitch in here. I think it's actually a double seed stitch. And then there is a garter section. So it's looking really good. Let me see if the picture, I think I've been showing this to you guys for a while. I think I have a picture. Here's the picture of what it will look like when it's done. It takes 2 skeins of DK weight yarn. So I don't remember exactly how many yards. If it takes the full 2 skeins, let me see what it says. It takes, it says here it takes 400 yards. So my DK skeins are 250 yards each, so I will probably have a little bit left over, but it will take the better part of 2 skeins. So that is the Autumn Blush Shawl by Joji Locatelli. The next thing is I cast on a couple socks. I'm not going to show you all of them. A couple of them, one in particular, is just another vanilla 64 stitch pair of socks for a friend. So I will show you those when they're finished. But this one is a pair of socks for my son, Ian, who is 16. And he picked out this skein of yarn that he wanted. And it is, here's what it looks like in the skein, and it is, I got it in one of those sock crate yarn monthly things that my kids got me. It is called Yarn Indulgences. That's the name of the company. And it is their Zed Soft Sock. 420 yards, 115 grams, 80% superwash merino, and 20% nylon. This is a Canadian dyer. So what I wanted to do something a little more than just a simple straight stitch for this one. Oh, where did I do with my, actually, oh, there it is. Losing my needles. I am a double pointed needle person when I do my socks, but you can see I use zeros, and they're, I don't know if you can you see that? They're not, I bend them. They do not stay straight. But I like the, I do snap a fair number, but I like the feel of the, they give a little bit more. They feel nicer in my hands than the metal ones do. I do also have used the carbons. Those are okay too. So anyway, looks like I dropped some stitches, but I decided to kind of make this up. It is sort of like a slip stitch pattern. And I am only doing the slip stitch, so the back I'm doing all knits. And then the front, I think it's like I made it up. It's on my project page, which I will link below. And it's a slip stitch pattern. I think it repeats like every eight rounds, something like that. And it's in my project page, so I'll link that below, but it's kind of fun. And the reason that I chose not to do the slip stitch on the back is because if you've never done slip stitch before, slip stitches tend to cinch the yarn in a lot tighter. In fact, if you look at it closer, you can kind of see like the back is taller than the front, slightly. And that's because you're slipping stitches and you're not knitting them, so then the yarn is going behind. So you have to be really careful about not pulling the yarn too tightly behind it, kind of like if you're doing color work, you don't want your floats to be super tight. And I have found that the socks fit way better if I keep the back part of my leg and the heel and the bottom part of the foot all stockinette and just do the patterning on the top of the foot and the front of the leg, because it will be way easier. Sometimes I made a pair of socks early on in my knitting career where I did a slip stitch sort of pattern all the way around it, and they were really hard to get over my heel, and I don't have big heel. I have long feet, but I don't have a big heel. So anyway, that is sort of a fun slip stitch pattern for my son. And I'm sure that will, once I finish my sweater, I will probably knit on that more. Then I've been talking about this sweater I cast on, so let me pull that out. It is the Fade Neve by Andrea Mowry. And I am knitting this also in Berry Fun Yarns, All-Star DK. It's an All-Star DK day. And I'm knitting it in 4 different colors. So let me see. I have a decent picture of the, you can kind of see the pattern here. So it's a gradient. For her, she used all of the same like family. So it was monochromatic, all blue, starts with light blue and it goes down. And it's just a simple, let me see. You can kind of see it's just a simple yoke sweater, and then it changes colors as it goes down, and it has nups in it. So nups are, I learned this because I've never done nups before. I've never really done bobbles before. The hat was the first time I did the bobbles. But the nups are a little bit smaller than the bobbles. So you actually, this is a reverse stockinette sweater. You knit it inside out, and then you turn it around. So I'm going to turn it inside out so you can see what it looks like. So here it is. We have the nice ribbed collar. And then you have the yoke to your sleeves here, and then you split for the sleeves. And then you just keep going in the body. So let me see if I can straighten it out a little bit. I am knitting, I believe, the size 2 of this one. And the 4 colors that I'm using, you can see the fun the nups are. They look really fun, but they take a long time to do those rows. So let me show you the colors I'm using. I am using Fairy Garden for that was the neckline. For the size that I'm making, size 2, it requires, and I think it's like a 42-inch bust. It requires 5 skeins of DK weight, 1 for the color that's at your neck, and then 2 of all the other colors as you go down. So Fairy Garden is the one I used on top, and then that one is followed by this beautiful colorway that I cannot remember the name of. But I'm definitely, when I start to dye again, I'm going to be dyeing this in the spring. And I'm not sure what I'm going to call it, but I'm thinking like grass stains and berry juice, because It's really hard. The subtlety of this color is really hard to see, but it is a light green again, but then it has pops of purple and pink and darker green in it as well. So the base of this and this is dyed with lilacs, these like really bright lilacs. They're kind of like the color of this in my mittens. And then it has, the darker green is red onion skins, and it has cochineal, and it has logwood. So here, let me show you. If you look at the inside, can you see it on there? No, you can't really see it. It's a subtle, this really subtle but beautiful colorway. I find that with natural dyes, it's really hard to get the color right. I try really hard when I take pictures and put them on the website, but it's really hard because some of them, the subtle differences and the nuances between the tones it's really hard to catch on camera. So anyway, Fairy Garden, unnamed, but which will be coming back to the shop in the spring. The next one is this kind of fun swampy, it's coming out a little more yellow, but it's a swampy green color. You can kind of see it better on here. And that one is called Steamed Asparagus. And then the last colorway, I actually have one in the skein yet. I haven't wound up. So I'll show you that one. And that one is called Under the Sea. And it's this really rich blue with some like darker blues, and then that like swampy green in it as well. So before, when I was talking about this shawl that I'm sitting on here, this one, the colorway Lemony Snicket. Lemony Snicket is a colorway that I'm sure I will be dyeing again. It's a yellow base with pops of red and pink and lighter and darker yellows. That one, if you take that skein and you dip it, if I over dye it into an indigo vat, it turns out like this. So all of these kind of bluish green colors is where there was very little yellow dye. And then these like brighter ones here is where there was a lot of yellow dye. The dark navy is where I had the purple. And then the like pinky purple is where I had the red. So I love that about the indigo dyes is you can take, when you over dye stuff, you get these beautiful combinations that you would not expect, but are super fun to have come out. So anyway, those are the 4 colors that I am using. So hopefully it won't be too long before I finish that. The pattern is a paid for pattern. The most of it is quite easy. It's just knitting. And the nups actually, the nup rows are not that hard, but every 10, I think it's every 10 rows, I can't remember. Every so many rows you have to do a nup row, which takes a long time because you actually do it with a crochet hook. And every like 3 stitches you have to make a nup. So it's a long row, although it's gotten much better now since I don't have the sleeves on. So anyway, that is the Fade Neve by Andrea Mowry. All right, I am getting close. I have one more works in progress to show you, and this is a temperature blanket. So a part of the Zombie Knitting Network I mentioned before is that when you join the network, you join at different levels, and they have, not every week, but very frequently, they will have a guest speaker who talks about something. I think her name is Tony Lipsy, I'm pretty sure. I will link her YouTube page below. She was on one week, and she is very into Tunisian crochet, which I have not tried yet, but I do want to try it. I'm just not quite ready yet to do that, to leap into another hobby. But she is big. When I went to her channel, she is very big into temperature blankets. If you haven't heard of a temperature blanket before, what that is that you follow the temperature throughout the year, and you knit so much for each day based on the temperature. So for instance, if it is 10 degrees, then your, okay, this is not making sense. Let me pull out my, here it is. So for instance, with a temperature blanket, what you want to do is you want to figure out first of all, you can decide if you're knitting, okay, I'm doing a really poor job of explaining this. A temperature blanket is a blanket that is based on the temperatures in your region or wherever it is you are, whatever time frame you wish for it to be. So a lot of people will do it like from January to January, okay, or January to December 31st. They'll do it the whole year, but you can do whatever you want to do. I am doing a temperature blanket for my oldest son for his graduation to take with him when he goes to college, based on the temperatures that were on the first year of his life. So he was born March 30th, 2003. So that's the first day that I started to crochet. Okay, I am making a corner to corner crochet blanket because I wanted to make it a granny stripe crochet blanket. However, I want it to be like twin bed size. But when I did a gauge swatch, which is very important, if you're going to do a temperature blanket, you want to do a gauge swatch. I'm using worsted weight yarn because I wanted it to go faster. The problem with that is that it takes up a lot more space. So if I were to do a worsted weight, a whole row, it was going to be in my blanket, it was going to be like 161 inches for the whole year. And I didn't really want to cut the blanket in half because I thought that would look kind of odd to do a half row and then switch and do another. I don't know, I just didn't like that idea, so I decided I didn't want to do that. So then I saw a pattern on Ravelry. It is called the 2020 Temperature Blanket by Heidi Filbert, and she did a corner to corner crochet blanket. So let me show you. So what I did my swatch, and then I did some math, and then I had my engineer husband help me with the math because I didn't want to mess it up. I wanted to start, and I didn't want to get halfway through or a third of the way through and go, oh my goodness, this blanket is going to be humongous. This blanket is going to be too small. I wanted it to work. So I thought, okay, I'm going to enlist his help. And so we did some math together. I made a little square that was like 2 by 2 inches in size. We figured out the area in inches. We figured out how many of the little, so when you do corner to corner, you make these tiny little like squares or little bumps here. So we figured out how many of these little squares were in that 2 by 2 swatch. And then we did the math to see how many little squares I needed to get a twin size comforter blanket. So in the end, we decided I needed to do 35 of these little square things for each day of the year. So here's where I've gotten so far. So I made, let's back up a little bit, I made this chart that coincides with the temperatures. And I did about, Tony Lipsy, she recommended like 6 to 8 degrees per color, depending, because I live in the Midwest, we have quite a range. We get down to below 0 in the winter, but we can also get up to 100 in the summer. So mine goes from 90 plus degrees, and then I have my lowest one is below 8 degrees. The nice thing about how I'm doing it is that I was able to go back and use the Farmer's Almanac and write down all the temperatures for the year first and kind of get and kind of see where they were so that I could make my chart based on the temperatures. If you're doing the temperatures as you go, you kind of have to maybe look at a past year's average and then go from there. I am also using the high temperature for the day. Some people choose to take the average temperature for the day. So say it's 20 degrees low and it's a 60-degree high, then you would use the color for 40 degrees that day. So it's kind of up to you, whatever you want to do. But I am using, this is a lot of yabbering, I am using Knit Picks Wool of the Andes Superwash. And this is a more expensive option for a temperature blanket because it is 100% wool. However, I wanted to make something, if I was going to spend this much time making this blanket, I wanted it to be one, warm and comfortable and cozy, but I also wanted it to be long lasting and durable. And wool of the Andes, I think, will be quite durable and will wash well, so we can wash it in the washing machine and put it in the dryer. I won't have to worry about it shrinking too much. So that is what I chose to go with. A lot of people will use acrylic or another like wool blend. I did look at some of the other wool blends at Knit Picks because they're fairly reasonable as far as price, but I didn't like the color options. That's the other thing. I think I'm using like 10 or 12 different colors. So you have to have enough colors that you like how they work together in order for the blanket to work. Because you don't want to get halfway through the year and go, gosh, I really hate these colors. What am I doing? What a waste of my time. What a waste of my money. Because no matter what kind of yarn you choose, it is going to be an investment because it's a blanket. So anyway, I am rambling a lot, but this is what it looks like so far. I have gotten 1 month done. So there's the bottom where it starts with March 30th and then it goes up into end of April. So he doesn't know I'm making this necessarily. I mean, he knows I'm making stuff for him, but he doesn't know exactly I'm making this. I asked him what colors he liked most, and he didn't say jewel tone, but when he was describing them to me, that was sort of what he explained in his almost 18-year-old boy way, that he liked the jewel tones. So that's what I went with, and I love this yarn. I love how it feels. It's fun to knit. Actually, it's crochet. It's fun to crochet, and yeah, it's really working for me. I like it a lot. I haven't worked on it much lately. I am using, because I've been doing the sweater, I've been using a Clover F 3.75 crochet hook. I really like the ergonomically correct handle. It really is comfy. And the other tip I would give is if you do a corner to corner like this and you have so many squares, is what I do is, so I don't have to count 35 every time, I will start and then I put a little stitch marker here telling me that I have to go until this one and then I switch to a new temperature. It's a new day. So that kind of helps make it less tedious than having to count out so much. So that is a corner to corner crochet temperature blanket. I'm going to put all my notes back in here with my hook so I don't forget that. And that is the last whip that I'm going to share with you today. As far as what's going on in the pots right now, it's nothing. And that is because it's happening all in the brain. We have this really cool refrigerator. If I can, I will link it below in case anybody is in the need for a new refrigerator. But we got our kitchen remodeled 5 years ago. And we got this refrigerator. We had to get a big one because we have 4 boys and they eat a lot. So we need a lot of room for the food. And we cook a lot of fresh produce. What the cool thing is about this refrigerator is that it opens, I don't know what they call it. It opens this way, right? So it's not like a freezer on top and a refrigerator on bottom, the old-fashioned style. The doors open, but then the bottom for the freezer's on the bottom, but those doors also open as well. And you can change it. You can have them both be a freezer, or you can have one side be a freezer and one side be a refrigerator. So what we were doing when I was dyeing yarn is that we were using the bottom refrigerator slash freezer was in the refrigerator mode, and that was where I would store all my natural dyes. Because when you make a natural dye out of a plant, most of them, the barks aren't as sensitive. But like if I make it out of onion skins or marigolds or flowers, they will go moldy after a certain amount of time if you don't use them. So they need to be refrigerated to last longer. So I would store my dyes in the refrigerator down there. Well, my husband has decided that he loves kombucha. And our local Costco has been carrying his favorite brand lately. And so he has been filling my dye refrigerator with his kombucha. So I need to wean him off his kombucha a little bit so that I can make room for my dye, and then I can do some more dyeing. And also, it's been really cold, so it's hard to, I'm not a big enough operation that I've invested yet in a yarn spinner to spin out the water, which I probably should or could. I just haven't. So air drying yarn, I usually do it outside, but when it's 0 degrees, your yarn is going to freeze solid. So anyway, I have a few of those things to work through, but I am hoping to be back in the pots soon. I've had lots of ideas that have been brewing in my head of things that I want to make, colors that I want to experiment with. So if any of you have any suggestions or ideas, feel free to send them my way or post them below. I'd be happy to hear what you're in the mood for as far as colors or ideas and combinations and things like that. So that's in the pot. So anyway, I think that's it. I've done enough rambling for the day. This is going to be a really long episode. Also, I had a lot of finished objects and a lot of whips because it's been a long time since I have put out an episode. So I hope that's okay with you, and if it's too long, you can break it up or only watch the segments that appeal to you most. I will not be offended, nor will I even know. So with that, I want to say thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming along on this journey of crafting and learning. And if you have any questions or suggestions about anything you would like me to talk about, anything you'd like me to work on in the dye pots, please leave them below or feel free to reach out to me. I would be happy to chat with you. So until next time, thank you much and have a great time knitting or crocheting or whatever it is you are working on. Bye, everybody.